Good morning, good day, good evening, or good night, wherever and whenever you're listening to this. Welcome to today's session of the Bitaxe Townhall. Let me quickly start up my virtual camera, and the guys in the town hall can also see what's going on the screen. It's lovely to be here today. It's lovely to be your host. We are writing the town hall number 29. I have missed you. We haven't been here for 4 weeks due to the fact that I need a little bit of family time. I hope that's all right, and you guys missed us as well as we did miss you. So with that, we do have a couple of topics that we want to talk today about. The first one is obviously the next release of the ESP Miner firmware. It has been a little bit of an issue with a couple of things that are going on there. It's still a little bit of on development, and it has been halted and reverted, but we are working on it, and everything seems to go in the right direction, and we want to talk a little bit about that. After that, we hopefully want to dive a little bit into a new topic, which is the Ember 1. Let's see if Scott will tell us a little bit about that or not. After that, I want to talk quickly about a new topic that we do have on our Discord server, which is the tuning section, which is probably interesting to a couple of you guys, especially those that are liking to FAFO around with your devices. And last but not least, I want to dive into public pool and what's going on with new updates on Umbro. So with that, it's good to be here. Good to have you on stage here, Scott. How are you doing? Do you wanna tell the people what you're talking about?
The 256 Foundation, by the way, which is a cool foundation run by Econo Alchemist and Rod out of Bitcoin Park with the mission of dismantling the proprietary mining empire, which I'm super stoked that those guys are starting that mission. Anyways, the first project that's come out of there is called the Ember 1, and they have given me some funding to work on that. So I've been working on it for a couple months now, but the idea is it's going to be a hash board. So this isn't a Bitaxe. It doesn't have a controller on board, but it's going to be a modular hash board. You could stack 3 or as many as you wanted, assuming you have a suitable control board and power supply. Kind of like Antminer hash boards, except for 1/10 the power. Those Antminer hash boards are usually around 1,000 watts each. This is going to be cool because it has a wide input voltage of 12 to 24 volts. So it gives you a little bit more freedom on how you power these things. And then also the data comes in over USB. So I'm not sure if he's in the audience, but shout out to K1, did some work on the firmware for a USB controller for these the chips on these hash boards. And yeah, you could plug these into a specifically designed control board for this that has USB ports, or you could plug it into a Raspberry Pi or your laptop. And yeah, I've been talking about this on sort of Pod 256 Foundation related stuff, some interviews there on podcasts. But I guess I haven't talked about it too much on OSMU, partly because I haven't released the design files open source yet. And I don't really like to really pump projects much until there's actually open source files to go along with it. So I am right now clicking the button to make this open source. Type in the digits to confirm, approve. And it's reloading. Okay, cool. So I'm going to post the link to this in the chat right now, but just posted it in there. You can check that out. That's the KiCad design files for the Ember 1. I still have to update the README because it's not finished. Don't go building it just yet unless you're looking for a project. If you're looking for a project, by all means, please build it, but don't think that you can just take this one and send it off to the fab and have yourself a working miner. It's still in progress.
So
And
let's quickly
been pretty
dive
cool.
into that. So if I do read that correct, you're utilizing the BM1362 chip, which is an older one from the S19J Pro.
Yes.
So we do know that the BM1362 is running at zero point 0.4 volts, if I'm not mistaken. So if I do see that correct, you
3.
0.3. So you're trying to create 4 voltage domains here, if I'm not mistaken? Or are
There's
these
actually
3?
12 chips on this board and 12 voltage domains. It's kind of
12.
insane. They're all in series.
What the 12 voltage domains? So we tried utilizing or creating a board with multiple voltage domains with the Bitaxe hex, and we really quickly figured out that there is a little bit of an issue when it comes to basically going with the signal from one chip to the other, because you need something like that is accounting for the changes in the voltage for the signals, for sending commands to the ASIC and so on. How's that working with the BM1362?
Yes, that's right. You're exactly right. When you have the data, so on all these miner designs, the data cascades from one chip to the other, and you run into these problems when that data crosses from one voltage domain to the other, because the I/O voltage is different in different voltage domains. So you end up having to do a level shifter. If we had to do that on this board, I think that would be a deal breaker because that would be 12 level shifters, like one for every single chip. But as PMax said right there, BM1362 does not need level shifters. And it's kind of interesting why. So like you said, the core voltage on the BM1362 is 0.3 volts. But the I/O voltage is 1.2 volts, which is what allows you to have the data cross voltage domains with no level shifter. You basically just connect it end to end and then go right across. For comparison, the chip that we used to make the hex, the first one was the BM1366. That had a core voltage of 1.2 volts and an I/O voltage of 1.2 volts. So that doesn't give you any headroom to cross voltage domains, and which is why you have to have a level shifter. And we can see that when we look at the Antminer hash boards, is they have level shifters on there. And if you look at you look at a S19J Pro hash board, there's no level shifters. They just send it right across. And in fact, the this chip is probably more so than others designed to have a lot of voltage domains. On the J Pro hash boards, there's 42 voltage domains,
Oh, insane.
whereas on the S19 XP hash board, which uses the BM1366 ASIC, there's like 10 voltage domains, and they have to have level shifters for all of them. So that's where we're going with this. The BM1362, the chip was selected for this first Ember 1, was chosen because it's the oldest Bitmain ASIC that still does version rolling, as far as I can tell. And because it's the oldest, it's the cheapest. You can get these chips for about $1 each, and they do in the neighborhood of 300 gigahash. So, it's the hash rate per chip is significantly lower, and the efficiency is significantly lower than something like the BM1370, which has 4 times the hash rate. But when you consider that you can get the same hash rate as the BM1370 for $4, that seriously beats the BM1370s, which are like $40 each.
Yeah, they're pretty expensive and rather new, and definitely we're not talking here about efficiency when it comes to the chips, but when we're talking plain about the hash rate that you do get out of that, that's for sure. That's an amazing idea to create something like that. So, and with having a board like this where you do utilize plenty of voltage domains and you can basically cascade as many chips as you want onto one single board, how's it going to work to actually plug this in somewhere else? So what's the idea behind that? You initially talked about it quickly that K1 has done a little bit of work on a USB controller. So how's that going to work? Is there anything in progress or going on when it comes to a control board for these units? And what's the goal basically with that? Do you want to have something that is stackable or just chain it together?
Yes, yes. I think that these Ember One hash boards, you could definitely use just one if you want, but I think you could also realistically use 10 of them. They're modular enough. All of the, you could use big fat cables, or you could use solid voltage, bus bars like the amp miners use to connect up a bunch of them. I think they're very modular. They could stack into a bigger box if you wanted to have a higher hash rate system. I think it could be particularly useful for smaller heating type applications, for maybe solar powered type stuff, where you want to kind of match the power usage to your particular source, or maybe how much heat you want to generate. I think that there's going to be some use cases in there. You asked about control board. So this does not have a control board. Like the Bitaxe has a control board on it, so you can just connect it to Wi-Fi and start mining. The Ember One does not. You cannot use it to mine Bitcoin on its own. It needs a separate controller. And I'm working with the 256 Foundation on there, and they have a project out. If you go to the 256foundation.org website, you can see these projects listed out. But one of them is called the Libra board, and that is a proposal for people to apply. There's grants available, there's money available to do this, but to make a open source Linux-based control board. And the first target for that control board is going to be the Ember One. So that also needs a Linux-based firmware. We don't currently have any open source. Well, I shouldn't say that. We don't have any. There are some projects that are Linux-based mining firmware that are open source, but I don't think we have a complete one yet. I know some people are working on it. We need to have something to support this, and I would really like to have it be suitable. Very suitable for modification, meaning that anyone can take this and support Ember Ones or Antminers or whatever future crazy thing they want to work on. So,
do you know if anybody's already working on the Libra board?
We've had a couple applications for the Libra board, and we've interviewed some people, but we haven't made any of these grant decisions yet. So, if anyone's interested in working on this, please go to 256foundation.org and apply. Yes, Dagnabbit, you should apply. I think this could be really cool project. There's some money. For those who don't know, we had a 256 Foundation fundraiser a little less than a month ago in Nashville.
Where you found a blog, huh?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. I feel like I've talked about this a lot. Forgive me if we've talked about it on here, but the concept which the Pod 256 guys came up with was to do a fundraiser where people would point hash rate would donate their hash rate to a pool that the foundation controlled. And so I think initially the plan was to do, your choice, whether you want to solo mine or do shared mining, so that we could potentially get some money if we didn't solve a block. But then kind of the way it came together at the last minute was, nope, we're gonna YOLO solo mine and see what happens. And so this was at Bitcoin Park in Nashville, and myself and Econo Alchemist and Rod, and then we had a bunch of different guests coming up. But we were planning on doing it for 10 hours. That was the plan. We were just going to live stream this whole thing and kind of be on stage just talking about whatever for 10 hours, trying to get people to solo mine for this fundraiser. And we had been up there for 8 hours, and solved a block. It was amazing. There's videos posted online, but we solved a block. So all that money from solo mining that block went to the foundation, and that money is earmarked for these grants. So, at current Bitcoin price, you know how much money that is. It's not enough to fund like full-time people for all of these projects. It's probably enough to get them started though. And so that's the plan over there. But yeah, 256foundation.org. Check out these grants. It's a little bit different if you've ever applied for OpenSats or HRF or Brink or Spiral grants. They usually work it where it's like you come up with your grant project and you propose it to them. These are a little bit different in that we have outlines of what the projects are, and people can apply to work on those. Now, obviously, there's a lot of decisions that still need to make. So we kind of are looking for project leaders to take them on and figure out how to implement them. That's kind of the goal over there. Let's see, what else? There's a bunch of cool projects. You should go check them out. There's 5 different ones. Real quickly, there's the Embro one, which I'm working on, but there's the Mugina is the firmware, Libra board is the open source control board, and then there's HydraPool, which is a sort of one-click installable pool software, like shared mining pool, and then Blockwatcher, which is a tool to analyze who's solving blocks and how they're solving them, and kind of shine some light on mining centralization and block template construction stuff. And Ben C98, yes, you're right, on the XP, 11 domains with 10 chips each. I knew it was 110 somewhere, but yeah, okay, 11 by 10, that's right. 42 domains, 3 chips on the J Pro. It's crazy. I actually think that the chips, the BM1366 chips, have 4 internal voltage domains. If you look at them, I'm pretty sure that they have like these 0.3 volt internal voltage domains, which is kind of cool. My perception was that in 1366 there are 4. Yes, okay, right, PMAX, exactly. That's what I think. I think the same with the 1366, 1368, and 1370. Because you can see that there's some bypass pins.
I know we were talking about the hash rate in the chat. Like he was basically asking if 12 BM3062s are faster than 3 BM1366. If you do think about that a BM1366 does have something between 400 to 500 gigahash, then yes, 12 of the 62s are faster than the 66.
Yeah, that's right. I think the BM1366 was a weird chip. I don't know. It really like bums me out that they don't have any internal temperature sensing.
I think the weirdest chip that we ever came across was like the Beam 1368, because it was right in the middle. It was barely available, and then out of a sudden they squished out the Beam 1370. This was so weird.
That's right. There was a really short period of time between when those 2 chips came out. I remember being very surprised about that. And it was such a big improvement from the 1368 to the 1370. So who knows? Does the HydraPool grant proposal or Blockwatcher grant proposal need any front-end developer work? Yes, I think so. I know that Mugina firmware definitely does. So you should get in touch if you want to work on that. BM1366 is the worst chip repair wise. Well, there's so many issues caused by the way these domains are used on the XPs. Yeah, man, I think they screwed up not having temperature sensing. Like with the 1368, we got internal digital temperature sensing and voltage sensing.
So how's that going to work on the 62 that we're utilizing on the Ember 1?
Temperature wise?
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually currently have, so I believe there is the internal diode temperature pins, and I was thinking about hooking up the first one just for giggles, but I currently have 2 air temperature sensors right next to the sort of inlet and outlet heat sink,
Yeah, I
sort
do
of the
see
way they
that.
do it
Yeah,
on the J Pro board.
but the last one is pretty far away for the outlet.
It is pretty far away. I was thinking of using a big heat sink.
Oh,
You're talking about the one on the right over there?
yeah, yeah, on the right over there. What's really interesting is like these coils are so massive.
Yeah. So this was an interesting voltage regulator design because I had lots of trouble finding a voltage regulator, a single stage voltage regulator that could handle 24 volts input. It
Hmm.
was a short list. That was a very short list. Certainly, if anyone has any pro tips on a good voltage regulator that can do, 100 watts or ideally more than 100 watts with 24 volts input and like in the neighborhood of 3.6 volts output, let me know. But this one I got is kind of old. It actually is still branded. It's from TI, but it's still branded like National Semiconductor, which is a company that TI bought like, I don't know, over a decade ago.
So when it comes to the board in general, we basically outlined now a little bit about that we're utilizing 12 chips here, and it needs an external control board. And we dived into that there is something that might be developed, which is called the Libra one. But when it comes to testing and figuring out if it works or not, I assume you came up with something CLI wise to test it out yet?
Yeah, I'm sort of just using Python to just bang on it to do my bring up testing,
Mm-hmm.
because it just presents itself as a serial port over USB.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's kind of neat the way K1 did this firmware. There's it mounts as two serial ports. One of them is just the UART for the ASICs, and the other serial port does GPIO and I2C for all the peripherals on the board. So you can read the temperature sensors so that you can adjust the voltage. We also have a current monitor or a power monitor on there, so you can read that.
Are you
There's
using a
an
shunt
RGB
or a
LED,
TPS for monitoring the power consumption?
INA 260, old
Ah,
tried and
yeah,
true.
yeah. That's perfect. I missed it. I missed it.
I know it's like, I feel like there could be a shunt, but it's sort of like it's easy enough for me to go with what I know on it,
Yeah.
and it's capable of doing that amount of current.
If
So
it works, right?
yeah, and there was back a couple years ago, it was so tough to get INA 260s, but I feel like that problem has just resolved itself.
What's really interesting is in the current scheme of where we are at with manufacturing Bitaxe gammas, for example, it's quite interesting that plenty of these parts are no longer available worldwide. So it seems like yeah, manufacturers are hoarding these components that you do need to build a Bitaxe, which is quite funny.
It is. If you go on AliExpress and search for Bitaxe, there'll be like random companies that want to just sell you all the parts for a Bitaxe if you want to get like Chinese knockoffs of all the parts.
Yeah, that's so weird. So there are plenty of things going on with that, and I was also diving into creating a board myself, which will hopefully be released very soon. We're waiting for the last couple of tests on the temperature because everything else is working, and it's running pretty reliable and stable. But what I wanted to point out here is it's so weird if you do try to get components from China. The first thing that these guys are doing is like checking if you do have any Chinese knockoff parts, and they will send you this instead of the original one.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like if you got a CM, a reputable CM, they'll use whatever parts you specify and not give you any knockoffs. Now it'd be cool if they're like, yeah, we know of this knockoff that's actually really good. We could sub that in and then you could try it out. But I think if you have a CM that is sneaking Chinese knockoff parts into your project, then you need to get a new CM.
Yeah, definitely. Before we go ahead, I want to quickly point out everybody who's listening to this later on, make sure to check out discord.gg/OSMU to find us at our preferable source of communication, which is our Discord server, where you will find links to everything, chats for everything, and what else you need and you can imagine about. And if you are still searching for something like a Bitaxe or anything else, make sure to check out bitaxe.org. All right. With that, I need to ask, do you think there's anything else we should point out on the Ember 1 before we go into other topics?
Oh gosh. What else?
I bet there are plenty, but
Yeah, it's a big topic and it's still under, heavy development, so there's
so
lots more to come.
manufacturers don't manufacture it yet. It's not ready yet.
Yeah, don't manufacture it yet, please. I mean, if you want to like try it out and bang on it, it will work with I actually have another issue to make, but I mean, if you want to like try one and build it up and screw around with it, that's awesome. Please do that. But, do not start manufacturing Ember ones in mass yet. I think you'll be a little disappointed.
It's quite interesting, and I think it's a little bit needed to say this here on the town hall, because we have seen lots of manufacturers just straight up producing what we're committing to the master branch, or what you or other people are committing to the master branch, and then they're wondering and like, heck, why is that not working? Well, if that's probably one of the issue of our community, I'd say. If you're not following on what's going on with it and you're not really on part of what's currently working and what's not, then you have an issue. You can't just go out there, copy paste stuff and imagine it will work. You need to know your shit. And if you're a manufacturer and you don't know the shit of how to get into designing yourself hardware boards, well, you're probably on the wrong side of manufacturing.
Yeah, a word of advice, if it's not in the released or releases section in GitHub, then it probably has bugs, right? We tend to test things out pretty heavily, both ESP Miner, Bitaxe, Ember One, any of these projects. We try to put them on GitHub and get them out there in the open so people can jump in and start helping if they want to. But if there's not a release in the releases section, I would not just blindly start building it.
Even if it takes a little bit longer because nobody has released something yet, well, then don't build it. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to make sure that it's going to work before I lay down tons of money to get a lot of these built, right? That stuff is not cheap. So, unless you really know what you're doing and have sort of verified on your own that it works, I would not go with anything but a release. And obviously there's no guarantees, right? There's no warranty provided with this stuff. It's all open source. So, even if it's in releases, there could be problems.
Well, talking about releases, I do think that's a great segue over to the next topic, which is talking about the next release of ESP Miner, which a couple of people are probably waiting for, and I want to quickly point out a couple of things. So, if you guys were active one to 1.5 weeks ago, you probably noticed that I did release the version 2.6.0, and quickly after that, we took it down again. I want to quickly clarify what was going on this end. We do have plenty of updates that are coming around with the next release. And I was a little bit on a rush, to be honest. There, I was releasing this version, and Scott quickly pointed out to me, well, there are a couple of other things that should go into this release before we go ahead and do a actual release of that. So we reverted to the version 2.6.0, and we're still developing a couple of things. For example, on the TPS, Scott was mentioning that there is a little bit of an issue when it comes to the measurement of the power consumption, as well as a couple of other things. So that's, I hope, on development on that end, as well as there are a couple of other things that have been improved in the last couple of days. And one of the biggest probably issues that was going on there was a implementation or a change on OC settings. So for those of you who are into that kind of stuff, you probably do know that sometimes you can press F12. On some browsers it works, on some it doesn't. It's a little bit inconsistent, and it would allow you to put in random or your own chosen numbers into the voltage and into the frequency for your ASIC chip. We have changed now a little bit, and I was initially thinking about just having a button there, which could cause plenty of people to think, hey, I'm a pro, I can just do that, and well, then burn up the design. So we had lots of arguments about that, if that would be a great idea or not. And this discussion is still going on how we're doing that and how it actually should be or should not be. So you do see where things like a decentralized community that we are, it's not as easy to be on a good point with everybody. Don't get me wrong here. It's awesome to have different inputs, and we need to make sure that we all align on something that fits everybody. So that's what's going on and what was holding back the latest release. But we are looking for plenty new features. There is a little bit of a change when it comes to the UI, so it's more cleaner. It is I'd say more readable, because now you do know where you need to put what in. For example, you now have a specific site for networking, a specific site for the pool information, one for the settings on the ASIC, and so on. So it goes along the way that the next release will be a little bit clearer and that it is a little bit more granny proof, because now granny knows what needs to go where.
Yes, lots of awesome grandma-based improvements. Thank you all for working tirelessly on those. Those are always like the trickiest ones too. You're like, just kind of weeding out sort of awkward UI elements and user experience elements. Huge shout out to E. Anderson, Mr. V, Mutatram for working on these things, and some others. Yeah, this is good stuff. We'll get this one out here soon, hopefully. I just got to say, it's amazing to have people who are thinking about this stuff and are passionate about it and like considering like how and why we should be doing these things. It's a huge change from like a year ago when it was like, I don't know, there was no input from the community. There was no, debate about different features and people presenting cool different ideas. So grateful to have you all working on this.
Yeah, there are definitely plenty of new features that are coming out with that, and I'm stoked to see how the community will react to this next release. You're probably also wondering why we're choosing now a higher number on the version instead of going for the 2.5.2. Well, sometimes you do think about a couple of changes that you do, and then you realize, fuck, that's way too big. It's not a small increment, it's a bigger one, so we need to go with that. Version 3 basically is reserved for something else, so that's not going to happen. We probably in the near future will see something like 21.0, something like that. But version 3 is reserved for another project, which is tied to the Rust project. So yeah, plenty of development. I don't want to dive today in this town hall into all the changes that we do have there, because I do think this will deserve its own town hall or its own topic or video, whatever. But if you're following that, or if you're not following that, make sure in our Discord server there is a channel called Firmware Testing, where we regularly post stuff and releases, beta releases, foremost, of new changes, where we also quickly explain what's going on there and what the people need to test. And this is also a good thing to shout out here to the people that are testing this stuff. We do have people that are testing the firmware on their devices, so that we instantly get feedback from them, what's working, what's not working. Sometimes you do have a typo or anything else. Sometimes you fat finger stuff. So it's really great to have other people on quickly checking that. Maybe you forgot to commit something and push it to GitHub. So that's definitely needed. And I think that's probably over the course of the last 1.5 years, the best thing that we did, having dedicated people to firmware testing. So huge shout out to everybody who's doing that.
That is fantastic. It's great to have people that just jump on any new feature and test it out. Your work in there is much appreciated, super helpful, getting immediate feedback, finding the inevitable bugs. That's good stuff.
And also for everybody who wants to become something like a firmware tester, we do have a channel which is called Application, where you can fill out a form and then we will review it. Because the current stage of firmware testers is pretty simple. We do have a couple one that will stay in there, but most of the other ones I will rotate them. So Sometimes you are in there and you can report back, and sometimes not. That's to make sure that we do get as many as new and fresh input from as many people as possible. And this rotation will probably happen in the next couple of weeks again. I try to do it every 2 to 3 months. So sometimes you're a firmware tester if you do apply to it, and sometimes you're not. But this will rotate.
I wanted to say, I think we can slow down the cadence of ESP Miner releases a little bit. You know, I realize we have just tons of awesome stuff and it's cool to get that out there. But I know it is a big hurdle for people, especially those crazy people who are running lots of Bitaxes. It's a big hurdle to update all of them.
Probably a couple of people now questioning, well, why don't you do something like auto update? And I guess you do have a good answer for that.
Yes, we don't want to do auto update. I think I would like people to be more in control over their own hardware. We've made it, well, y'all have made it pretty easy to check and see if there's a new firmware available and basically do that update process from within AxOS. But auto updates seem dicey from a self-sovereign and decentralized point of view. I mean, they're going to rely on a centralized update server, which we don't really want to do.
That's also the reason why. That's also the reason why if you do go over to your settings page and you want to check for the latest release, there's a small information below that. Clicking this button will connect you to GitHub to check for recent updates, so that you are aware about the fact that if you want to do that, that your device is talking to some other server.
Yes, I keep a pretty hard line on allowing the firmware to automatically make connections to random other servers. In the past have worked in IoT hardware for a while and seen lots of just crap. Like there's so many crappy IoT products that just are phoning home to servers, centralized in different places. Like there's all kinds of horror stories about like you bought some internet connected garage door opener and then the company goes out of business and you can't get into your garage anymore because the thing's bricked. Like just stupid stuff like that. Like this project is about being decentralized and being able to fully own the hardware that you bought or that you made. And so there could be some cool convenience features that may hit another server, like getting the Bitcoin price or even getting the time. I don't want to do that in AxOS. I think that I just think it should not hit a server that you don't have the ability to fully control.
Yeah, and if you're opting for something like that, you can always opt over to one of these member projects, such as the NerdQX or NerdNodes or NerdMiner in general. They do have something like cool screens and talking to other servers where they do check for the Bitcoin price, which is okay. But with Bitaxe, we're trying to tend to the only connection it's gonna make is if you want to do that, check on GitHub for any updates, and the other connection is to the pool that you want to connect to. Nothing else.
Yes. And that's the cool thing about this project is there are people who have different ideas about how it should be done, and they are, they're doing it. I love to see other people coming up with their own projects, doing it their own way. We have with the API, there's a lot of different ways you can make interfaces for Bitaxe or multiple Bitaxes or NerdQX, anything like that. Oh my gosh, that blessed guy. Thank you. Dude kept asking about Lucky Miners.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, where was I going?
Well, I think we clarified this session. Let's quickly dive into a question that we do have from the chat. Crypto Eyes asked, if you want to add an on-off switch for argument's say on the Bitaxe, how would you execute it on a K switch? Would you wire the 5-volt via a K switch to the AX, or would you have a circuit that takes a low power signal from the switch to try the 5-volt rail power? So in theory, we the Bitaxe itself does utilize 5 volts on an input, and with new versions coming out, there will be also other input voltages such as 12 volts or higher. But for the current standard, it is 5 volts going in, and the 5 volts are powering the ESP and the buck converter on to your AC chip. In theory, it would be able to power on or power off the AC chip using the buck converter, but we don't have that feature in there yet. There is no real reason to do it yet, unless, and I do think that's where Crypto Ice is also wanted to go with this question. You want to do something like solar input, where you want to be able to shut off the ASIC as soon as there's not enough solar or any other power source coming in. But yeah, he's clarifying
it. We should create a Crypto Ice. Maybe you can do it, or someone should create an issue on ESP Miner to add the regulator on-off to the API, because we can turn off the ASIC core voltage regulator now on recent Bitaxes. We can just straight up turn it off. That will cut your power by like 90%. I guess with that, we need to add the ability to reinitialize the ASIC when you turn it back on, because you can't just turn on the power and start mining.
That's super simple.
So there's a little bit more to it than just that, but I think we should keep that in mind. I think this is a great thing to have. So if we have an issue about it, we can, add it to the to-do list for sure. I think it's doable.
Hello? Voice broken?
Hello? Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I'll raise an issue. It was actually, the question stemmed, I'm in the process of doing the solar bit stuff. So I've got the case, and it came to me today that I don't have, call it an emergency button on the outside, or a button that you can turn the damn thing off, as in the circuitry from tracking and moving and doing whatever. So you can say you pick it up and take it in your garage instead of opening the case with screws and disconnecting the battery. So my thought process was, I want to basically disconnect the battery from, have a switch to isolate the battery from the circuit. And my question was, because I'm making a motherboard for it that will do all the controls and feed the Bitaxe. The question was, I'm at the stage where I can make a circuit that will just take a signal. It'll be a little active circuit in the corner, which won't consume much, and trigger a relay to kill everything. Or do I just run the 12-volt cable from the battery to the switch, and from the switch to the PCB?
Yeah, I would definitely, having a main power switch that just straight up kills everything seems like a feature you would want to have in this.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, something is sleep. I mean, it won't stop the solar panels feeding the battery, kind of thing. So if you left it outside and it's doing nothing and there's sun, you want it to sort of harvest. Okay, it might not be tracking or do anything, but it's harvesting. But it's not moving. It's not active as such. I mean, if you want the solar store, you just pull the MC4 connectors off. But yeah, I wanted a switch on the outside that I want a reset button, and they say something. I don't know. I got my kid to kick it with a football the other day to see if the gears hold up and if it holds up. And I thought, oh well, if it moves, I need a bloody way to reset it. I'm not going to wait till the next morning till it tracks its way over to the reset. So I needed 2 buttons. I need an emergency shut off and start, and a reset button that triggers the reset on the ESP to start the dance from the beginning. But I had
also,
a techie.
When people start testing it, right? There's always that well, did you try turning it off and back on again? That is a very important debugging technique, and so you should give them an easy way to do that.
Yes, I mean, I'm building something that's completely hackable. I want everything to be accessible and to rip it apart as much as you can and tinker with it as much as you can. So I've also got an external antenna for the Wi-Fi, because I'm expecting people to just shove this out in the middle of nowhere. So hopefully we can get some decent range. I picked the ESP that's got the little button connector on it instead of the inbuilt antenna, to try and get it a bit away from the MPPT and the chargers. Yeah, and I've also allocated a 3-cable BAP connector to connect eventually to a micro JST, whatever, next to the power cable that's going to the Bitaxe. So eventually we can connect to the BAP port, because I know myself and Duncan with his BitHalo, we have a great interest to be able to.
The BAP port. The BAP port. Yeah, it's something that is. I mean, I'd love to have this a
Even
little
one
bit.
way, even one way to start with. I mean, but instead of me having to build UIs and stuff, it triggered it from the conversation we had earlier. Well, you mentioned earlier, Scott, about the INA. Since we're building a solar thing, I thought a lot of the tech nerds want to try and monitor as much information as they possibly can. So I'm going a little bit overboard with the INAs and putting um, one of them on the solar input, one of them on the battery, and one of them on our circuitry, so they can have three different readings, so they can figure out what's coming in, what's going out, what's been harvested. Um, so eventually, um, I want sort of, instead of having someone to log on to the unit, the accessory itself to look at this data, maybe I can shove that data down through the back port to the XOS, even if it's coming as raw format.
I mean, the idea with the BEP is, and Scott and I, we spoke about this, of having some sort of like a library which allows you to select specific commands or input signals that then translate on the BitX to, hey, I got this input, now I need to send out of my TX channel this exact information. And
I don't want to complicate it for you guys. I know it's
no,
an early
that's the
discussions
way
with
we're
that.
trying to
I
do
don't
it, but
I don't need TX from you. I mean, at this stage, I mean, this is all stemmed from the idea what Scott and me said a year ago about doing that. What we called it, Scott, the day miner,
The
like
day miner, yes.
completely independent. So my vision on the process, on the steps to get there, um, eventually we want, as we said, the miner to adapt. Okay, so we can ditch the battery eventually. So at the starting stage, I want to try and shove as much information to the Bitaxe as possible. So if I can send from all these INAs how much power we're making, how much power we're now taking off the battery, how much the motors are taking to track. That's why I've put all these INAs in. What you do with the data, I don't know at this stage, but I can try and give as much data points as possible to the Bitaxe BAP for then you guys to figure out with your software how you track that data from all these the harvest and the battery part. So then eventually do your bit and get the miner to start reacting to that data from the harvest and maybe slow itself down or speed
yeah,
itself up.
the idea about that
And
is a
then,
little bit the other way around because with the BAP we want to do something where we do have some sort of a library with plenty of code in there that allow you as an external device to communicate to the BitX and tell it, hey, well, I need that
yeah,
data or I want to do that.
that
So
as well. I mean,
yeah,
there's
we
other
just need to
devices that
come up
need
with
both ways. Yeah.
this. It takes a little bit more time. I'd say we're not really planning on that currently. It is
No, we're
somewhere
planting the
deep
seeds.
down, but
And I mean, I'm trying to build something that will have this feature pre-built. So maybe that will spark some interest from any pleb that's maybe gets one and wants to have that feature, and they can start working on your firmware side. And obviously, they can alter our firmware any way they want. Um, it's going to be pretty simple based compared to what you guys built.
Yeah, I would say that the first implementation is going to have to be a separate controller that it can adjust the hash rate and therefore the current consumption of the Bitaxe fast over the BAP, and it can get parameters that the Bitaxe is already measuring over the BAP. But it's not. I think it's probably best to have the algorithm that controls your solar bit separate to the Bitaxe,
Yeah,
so that
it is
we
separate.
can make
It's
the BAP just standardized. Like imagine basically everything that's available on the Bitaxe API and everything you control with the Bitaxe API is available over the BAP.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, in my case, I don't need um, to react to anything you guys are doing because you're the consumer in my case. So I just need to send you as much information of what I'm making.
You know what I'm
In my
saying is that don't send any of that data to the Bitaxe. You process that separately from the Bitaxe, and then you can collect data from the Bitaxe. But then,
Okay.
if you need to, you can tell the Bitaxe use less power.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm running the same ESP as you guys, so I guess it's got the horsepower to do that down the line, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm preemptively set it up with the hardware, and it's got a 3-pin connector. Um, does it need more than 3 pins for the BAP?
Um,
Because the
let's see.
ground and the power is going from that board anyway to feed the Bitaxe.
Yeah, I mean, I
So
think if you just want a serial port, 3 pins should be fine.
Yeah, well, I've allocated a small 3-pin, but because I'm grounded between each other because I'm feeding you power. So that circuit is also giving the 5 volts to the Bitaxe.
Yeah,
Um,
3 pins would be
my
just ground, RX, and TX if it's async serial.
Do we need anything else for the BAP?
I mean, there could be GPIOs. I don't think you would need anything else, right? If we're doing this protocol right, you can get everything over the BAP serial protocol.
That's the
I'm an
idea. Yeah.
BAP. So I'm staring at KiCad, KiCad, whatever you call it. It depends on the part of the world. I mean, I can put any kind of connector I want. So if I'd rather overkill the connector and then have less. So what's the worst case scenario that we might need? I mean, I'm trying to set this Gen 0 standard here, IEEE Gen 0 BAP port standard from an accessory. So, and I know
Just
Duncan.
connect them all, man. The ESP is cool because any digital peripheral can connect to any pin. So just connect them all.
No, from my side they are. I mean, I'm allocating a connector on the board to come to the Bitaxe eventually. I wonder how many cables we need.
That's what I'm saying. Connect up all the BAP, right? The BAP is 6
Four?
pins.
Six pin. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
four of
one
those are digital data. So connect them all.
Yeah,
Okay.
5 volts
Sounds
and
good.
the other one's ground. So yeah, 4 usable ones. But as Scott said, we need to come up with some sort of a protocol. We do have a little bit of an idea, but nobody really currently does have time to work on that. And with that, I do think we shall also move over to the last 2 topics because we are already sitting at roughly 15 minutes here, and I want to make sure that we do get in all these topics as well as
One
yes.
quick thing about the BAP. Sorry, one more thing, real fast. And Ben C98 and I have been talking about this a little bit, but the 5 volts on the BAP, that is the VIN voltage of the Bitaxe, and Bitaxes are moving to 12 volts. So I realize this is going to be kind of rough for some people, but I think Duncan will like this. You know, the power pin in the BAP is the VIN voltage of the Bitaxe, so it'll be going from 5 volts to 12 volts in the future.
Kind of, does it have the horsepower, the thickness of it to take the power for the Bitaxe?
Yeah, I think so. That's the idea. Is you should be able to power the Bitaxe from it.
Oh, cool.
We've got to Duncan's got to comment on this.
He's gonna rage, guys.
Yeah, I'm going to comment on this.
Hey,
Yeah,
hello,
let's go.
everybody.
All right.
Hey guys, so just really quickly, I don't want to hijack this. So just to kind of reiterate what you just said. So Bitaxes are moving over to 12 volt operation, kind of doing away with the 5 volt supply.
Yes.
The GT
5 volt has been kind of a disaster.
Well, it's power hungry. It's yeah. So does that mean the V-Regs on board then? They just got a broader scope for well, essentially
10
a
to
broader
14.
range.
10 to
Yeah,
14.
it's like 11 to 14, something like that. This
Yeah,
is starting
11
with the Bitaxe GT.
Okay. All right. Okay.
I'll
good.
send you the
As
dates,
long as it's
Duncan.
not the gamma that I've got the 1,000 power supplies in order from. That'll be great.
No, we're not like backporting any of the previous models to 12 volts.
Yeah, sure.
Famous
I'm
last words. I don't know. Ben is probably like wrong. We're changing them all.
yes, yeah. But actually, to be fair, with the with a well overclocked gamma, you can pull up to 30 watt, and if you're running two chips on a GT, like if you start playing around with 12 amp 5 volt power supplies, it's just getting ridiculous. I think moving to 12 volt is a very, very wise move.
Yes, and we're also moving to a different connector, so you don't have to worry about like, oops, I plugged 12 volts into my 5 volt gamma.
You're going off to is it that the yellow RC carb sort of one?
Yes, the XT30.
Yeah, cool, very good. Look forward to it. Good.
Right
I won't take
on.
any more time. Goodbye, everyone.
Good to see you, man.
all right. Let's head into a little bit of another topic. We do
Oh,
well.
can I ask you one last thing about it's not the BAP, the 12 volt rail. Scott, we touched base on it about how quickly you said it moves. Give me a quick definition of what is the concerning quick time.
Oh
Couple
gosh, I don't
seconds?
know. That's a data sheet thing. I don't know. K1
No,
could
but
probably
I'm talking
tell us
in
off the top of
I'm
his
talking
head
in the
'cause he's like
seconds
that,
here.
but it's gonna like the slew rate, the input slew rate is going to be pretty quick, right? I imagine it's
Well,
like
the battery is covering everybody,
microseconds,
so
I would
what
assume. I mean,
it's going to basically be if they're shadowed out. Because if I feed you directly from the battery feed connector, it's getting charged by the charger at 14.2 volts. Okay, so it's Normally hanging a bit less unless in the mid 30s or top 30s, depending what the battery state is, but it slowly creeps up battery capacity wise. If the shadow just say creeps in quick and it cuts, it tends to go say from 13.8 to 13 point whatever 4-ish. I've seen like a point something volt drop with this battery on a gamma running a full pelt. And so within a second, you're losing 0.3 volts kind of thing of a move. You're not going 14 to 11. The concern is the period of the drop, how quickly it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's the magnitude of the voltage drop and the time at which it takes.
Yeah,
right?
the magnitude, I wouldn't say it's more than half a volt, because the battery tends to hold it quite well. The speed, how do we check?
You can look at it on an oscilloscope. You mean the capability? That's going to be in the data sheet for the voltage regulator.
Okay, well, I'll touch with you, Bill. On the
and also, we can just try it.
Yeah,
like if you have a nice power supply, you can program in like big spikes, have it change fast, and see what happens. 600 to 1 megahertz. Okay. Yeah. All right. That's pretty quick. Yeah, I think. I mean, there's the case in which it browns out, but then there's also the case of which you see like it's not able to regulate that fast.
Well, this is a question, but it was going to go straight because I had to call about with this with K1, and we were debating whether to put another buck boost converter in the middle. Because say if the clouds are gone and the battery dips to say 11 volts because you've been using it in the shade a bit, it's going to go below the 12, so it needs a buck boost. But everybody's like, well, that's another waste of bloody energy, and I'm like, well, it's 0 times 0 wasted if it's solar. I mean, I don't care if I lose another %, but the guy's got a point. It's like up down on the convergence. So the question is, do we go straight from the battery and take the fluctuation, or do we try and regulate it and have losses and then have a stable output?
Well, I do think all these questions are a little bit more into detail on what we're trying to achieve here on the town hall. So I'd like to propose to move forward with the other topics, and we discuss these ones later on. All right.
Have a technical session.
There we go. All right, so the next topic that I wanted to quickly point out here is that we do have a new channel on this Discord server, which is called Tuning. And we mentioned earlier a little bit about that a couple of you people are probably interested in overclocking or changing frequencies out of scope or other things. And now we do have a dedicated channel basically for that, as well as there is something going on. I do think like great things are upon us where other people are trying to write software, or they are not trying, they're actually doing it to have some sort of an overview of all your Bitaxe devices that you do have and giving you the option to tune your device depending on what you want to do. For example, tune your Bitaxe to a specific hash rate or tune it to a specific efficiency, stuff like this. So we do see more and more coming online on this end, which I just quickly wanted to shout out here and mention this because it's looking promising, and I'm really happy to see that. And maybe someday in the future we also have some sort of a tuning functionality in the XOS firmware. Who knows?
Hell yeah. It's so cool. There was like 4 or 5 people all at once who were like, well, I guess Mr. V's been working on it for a while, but there was like 4 more people that just showed up and like, I'm working on a tuning app. Which is cool. It's cool to see.
It's definitely amazing. And I do have probably heard this, like I'm working on something tuning wise multiple times. If I'm not mistaken, a couple of people here on this community also pointed out that they do have changed a little bit. Mechanics, for example, he pointed out a couple of days ago that he has done something, but if I'm not mistaken, he's not publishing stuff on GitHub because he doesn't have an account. As plenty other people are not used to GitHub. It's a little bit of a shame, but at the same point, maybe we should do a little bit more due diligence in this section of getting people onto GitHub and how to post stuff, because it's just amazing sharing your work and being sure that more people can benefit from it. But while we're talking about new stuff, I just quickly wanted to talk about the tuning section or the tuning scene that we do have here, which I'm really stoked about, is that there seems to be a small update on the Umbrel version for public pool. I'm not really sure if it is an update on the public pool code itself, but it's more of a widget. And I think it's cool to mention this here, that you're now able to see on your home screen of your Umbrel node how the stats on your public pool are behaving. For example, how many devices you have connected, how high is the hash rate, and so on. I'm not really sure if Ben, who's in the audience, is willing to quickly talk about this, if he does have any insights into that or not. But I think I just wanted to quickly point this out here so that you guys know.
Did you see that tweet? It was some person I'd never heard of before. Just casually posted like, "Oh man, I'm loving the new public pool widget," and he's posted a screenshot of it with like a couple petahash.
Oof.
Did you see that? It was so rad. It was just like, oh, I love the new widget. It's great. And then you look at it closely, and it's like, dude has got multiple petahash.
Wait,
that was so badass. So Ben says he didn't work on it, but anyways, it's cool to see. Umbrel has been a supporter of adding public pool for a while. I think they were the first people to. I don't think they worked on it, but they blessed it. They're like, this is cool, let's do it. And now several of the other node platforms are. I know that StartOS from Start9 has gotten into the mix. Got a message from Matt Hill, the leader of that project, who was very excited about this, and they want to do some more in that regard. So, really excited to see the options for mining to your own node increase, because this is what, in my mind, this is what we need to be doing. As many people as possible. If you're going to solo mine to your own node. You don't need to like pay someone else a fee or rely on someone else's hosting to do this. You can mine to your own pool, and it's pretty rad to figure out how to do it and know how to like own the whole stack.
Yeah, especially knowing how to actually come up with your own Bitcoin config file is that's some skill that you don't learn if you never touch that. So I beg that. I can definitely suggest you guys check this out if you haven't never done this. Even if you just start with a Raspberry Pi and punch on it like bare Linux and just download the Bitcoin core and to try to get used to it or whatever you like. It's a skill set that puts you upon all others who are not into it.
Just like, this is the like modern day knowing how to like, start a fire and cook your food. It's like knowing how to like secure your money. I don't know. It's good stuff.
Unless you're Bybit, huh?
Unless you're what?
Unless you're Bybit.
Bybit? What?
Okay, Bybit is basically, I don't want to do any advertisement here, but it was quite funny. Bybit got probably hacked by the North Koreans.
Oh, Bybit. Sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Unless you're Bybit.
Yeah.
Well, they should have. Didn't they have it with? Well, first of all, it was Ethereum, right?
It was Ethereum, but it seems like this the North Korean wallet of Bitcoin is filling up. So I don't know if these are conspiracy theories or not. It's just funny to read.
It is funny. I saw something that was like, oh, like they're gonna roll back Ethereum to before this hack, like they did way back in the day with the DAO.
It was
thing.
so stupid. Oh my goodness! A rollback on a blockchain. Fuck my life.
But the crazy thing is the North Koreans already sold their Ethereum for Bitcoin potentially. So if they roll it back, it's just going to be hurting the poor fools that sold their Bitcoin for Ethereum. Big mistake there, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say that, Solo Satoshi. Yeah.
Too soon.
LMAO. Yeah, please, everybody who's listening to that, I'm not backing this sentence. Well, guys, if you didn't know that, it's awesome to have you here in the audience, and it's awesome to be here and see how active you guys are and coming up with ideas and questions. Please, whenever you do have any questions, make sure to ask them and point them out. These town halls are obviously here for you to get news on the whole project, the whole scene of osmu, but as well for you a point of contact to ask us questions that maybe you're not not likely asking in the chat or anything else. So if you do have any questions, feel free to ask them. If you do have anything for the ending scene here as well, do that. Otherwise, we will make sure to close this town hall in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
We have some more questions here.
Dum 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 dum.
I'm scrolling back here.
I think something weird was going on. Like there was a dude posting all day long about Lucky Miner shit. I don't know what was that issue.
Like people are like, don't post about Lucky Miner. It's not open source. Oh, actually, that Duncan had a question. He was like, why do we not want to talk about Lucky Miner? Like, what do we want to talk about? Why do we talk about legit sellers?
We don't.
I think.
Yeah, go for it. Sorry.
I mean, we get this question a lot, right? People are like, "Oh, there's lots of people talking about Bitcoin miners in here, and I just got a Lucky Miner, and I want to talk about my Bitcoin miner. Why can't I talk about it? What? I thought you guys were all about hacking Bitcoin miners." Yes, we are about hacking Bitcoin miners, but the topic, the name of this Discord server, the name of this group is the Open Source Miners United. So we like to focus on open source mining. Now, a lot of what we have learned and developed so far is by reverse engineering closed source stuff. So there's some discussion about that needs to happen. But the Lucky Miner case specifically, that is a ripoff of the Bitaxe source, which they then did not provide the source for their modifications. And, I've mentioned this before, but it is trivial. It's trivial to follow the open source license with the Bitaxe and just publish your changes. So I have to assume that Lucky Miner not publishing their changes is basically just a fuck you to all of us. And so we don't want to, we don't like want to even like talk about that bullshit here. I think it's not worth the time. It's not like worth reverse engineering it because it is the Bitaxe design and it's just a crappy version of it. So I don't see a lot of benefit in spending a lot of time reverse engineering that.
Yeah, you know what my daily go-to is? We do have a subreddit, and it's called the Bitaxe subreddit. And my daily dose is going on to subreddit, going into our Bitaxe subreddit, and taking a look there. Somebody, maybe sometimes daily and sometimes weekly, is posting about, hey, how can I fix my Lucky Miner? And I do love it. I do love it. People are just posting, well, that's the fuck you get if you buy something that's a rip-off. Well, that's my daily dose of being happy. That's what I do. Man, this is so good.
The other issue, I think, is that a lot of sellers, if you look around who are selling Lucky Miners and other knockoff Bitaxes, is they always say like Bitaxe Lucky Miner, right? They're trying to get that like Google search result for Bitaxes to try and be like, hey, look at this, like a cheaper, Bitaxe you can get. Just get it. It's just as good as the Bitaxe. And the problem is they don't offer any support whatsoever. They don't have any community like this that goes along with it. And so one of the problems is if they're just all coming here when their piece of shit miner breaks looking for help, that could really like overwhelm sort of all the volunteers here. And we don't want to do that. We really don't want to do that. We don't know how those miners work. I mean, they made some changes. We don't know what they are. We don't really want to, because speaking for myself, I don't really want to like take the time to figure out what their changes are and why it's breaking and how you fix it. So we can't offer support for Lucky Miners here. Like we don't have the time, we don't have the knowledge. Like go somewhere else to fix your Lucky Miner problems.
Well, another topic that also falls into this category is I was pissed today to see this again. There are a couple of resellers or sellers in general that are offering Bitaxes and that are claiming that they are on the legit list and they are a fully certified Bitaxe reseller whatsoever. Guys, if you do see this on a website, the first thing that comes up to my mind is, well, this is suspicious. I will go over to the bitaxe.org/legitlist page and I will make sure that they are on this list. And if they are not on this list, well, That's odd. I've seen this today. I wrote a couple of emails today to a couple of people and basically politely told them, fuck off, take this off your webpage, otherwise we will take actions. Because this is bullshit. You can't go out there and tell people that you're legit and that you are someone who is fully supporting the open source scene while you're not doing that. This is an ass move.
It is an ass move.
It's ridiculous.
It's really an ass move. Like, there's nothing we can do about it, right? That this is going to happen no matter what. I think that, I mean, this is the point of the legit list, is to promote people who are taking a second to follow the open source license.
Yes.
So that there's somewhere you can go to hopefully avoid these just fucking scammers, right? I mean, they're going to happen no matter what. I remember in 2011, I went to Shenzhen, China, where it's the electronics manufacturing capital of the world, and they have these massive buildings full of electronics sellers and all this stuff. And generally, as a rule, the higher up you get in these buildings, the sketchier they get. And so you get up to like the top floor, and it's people straight up knocking off like iPhones right there. Like they're printing out holograms for Samsung, batteries. Like, they can copy anything, and they have got a huge market for it, and they're just pumping this stuff out. So, Apple, who has all the money in the world and can afford like more lawyers than anyone else, they still can't stop this from happening. So, this little open source project certainly isn't going to stop it. But what we can do is try and promote the sellers who are doing it right, the sellers that are, on board for the cause of dismantling the proprietary mining empire, open source, bringing it back, and just try and hype them as much as possible. Yeah, Duncan says it's more about just adhering to the licensing. It's about contributing to the community and supporting one another. Yes, it is. I mean, there are a couple additional rules on the legit list, more than just following the open source license, but they're rules intended to make it clear that sellers what they're selling you, and that the source is available and that you can get it. I don't like to see sellers advertising one Bitaxe and selling another, or not providing the source, making sure that everyone who buys one of these things realizes that they can get the source. Like, that's really important to me. So that's some of the other guidelines on the legit list. Circle jerking each other into foss. Yes, whatever it takes, Marshall. I mean, whatever gets you going, let's go. He's like, yeah. Circle jerk, I'm in.
Well, I think these are some important words, especially for everybody who... It is... Sometimes...
You're invited, weird robot. You're invited, man. We're all just one big happy circle here.
Oh my goodness, now this is going out of hand.
Sorry, this is a PG podcast.
Well, I guess we need to stop this town hall here. This is going out of hand.
With that note.
Oops, what's going on? We landed on Pornhub. No. All right. If you guys don't have any more questions, I do think this is a great ending here to talk a little bit about what it takes to be on open source, and that open source is what matters, because we do believe in it. And without open source, we wouldn't be where we are currently. And we are close to 6.8 thousand members on this Discord server alone. There are more than 20,000 Bitaxes produced and sold worldwide. The whole scene is insane. We are moving, guys. This is not something that is stopping. We are gonna go insane with that. And I hope someday they will realize, these big, not foss companies, they are changing the market. Fuck.
Yeah, they're starting to realize it's happening.
Yeah, as Crypto Eyes said, it's not enough. We are just warming up.
It's just the beginning, but it's fantastic to see it gaining steam, right? We have all kinds of amazing follow-on projects that are open source to the core, hardware, software, tons of sellers all around the world who are like in it for the cause, like a zillion customers who are just loving it. Yeah, fuck Zeus Mining. Those guys are ridiculous.
All right, guys. I thank everybody
yeah,
for tuning
appreciate
in
you
here.
all.
Really, guys, it's awesome having you here. It's awesome being your host today, as always. And I really love doing that. It's not stopping. Sometimes I'm not there, and sometimes I need a little bit of family time. But unless I do need some family time, I'm gonna be here doing crazy stuff with you, and it's just being amazing to do all that. So I thank everybody for tuning in here. I thank you, Scott, Duncan, and Cryptoids for being on the stage as well. It's amazing. And Scott, last famous words.
Wow, look at there's 37 people here in the audience, and I see so many people that have contributed all kinds of amazing things to this project. So we're getting to the point where I couldn't just list you all out, but man, seeing all you here, this is so cool. Let's go. Like CryptoWise said, this is just the beginning. We're just getting started, so let's fucking go.
Thanks everybody for tuning in, and thanks everybody who's listening to this later on. If you're still not aware of where to find us, look no further than discord.gg/osmu. Thanks for being here. I salute to everybody of you. See you next time.
Bye.